Hello and welcome. I am so glad that you are preparing for this, our first virtual meeting of the Presbytery of Detroit. I am Marianne Grano, our brand new state clerk. So happy you're here. Now, even if you've been to a Presbytery meeting before, or even if you've used Zoom before, there's probably going to be something new for you with this Presbytery meeting. So I'd like to go through some of the features with you. Our goal here is to have a Presbytery meeting that can really allow as many people as possible to participate during this time of pandemic. So the first thing that I'd like to talk to you about is the check-in procedure. We're going to open the check-in at 3 o'clock, even though the meeting's not until 4. This will give our staff and our co-hosts lots of time to check people in. So please get checked in as early as you can. This will also give us time to gather and to chat with one another verbally or using the chat function, just as you would at a regular physical Presbytery meeting. So when you come into the meeting, you're going to be asked to rename yourself. Now, the easiest way to do this is actually when you log into the meeting, to do it a different way that you might log into most of your Zoom meetings. If you're like me, you usually just click on the link. For this meeting, it might be better to log into your Zoom account, type in the meeting ID and the password, because then Zoom will give you the option to just rename yourself upon entering the meeting. And we'd like everyone to rename themselves in the following format: first name, last name, whether you are a teaching elder or a ruling elder. Teaching elder is clergy, ruling elder is non-clergy, and then your church name and your city. So if you have done all that, we'll just go ahead and admit you into the meeting. However, if you fail to do that, you still will be admitted into the meeting, and we'll just have you rename yourself once you get into the meeting. To do this, the easiest way is to scroll over the picture of yourself that is at the top of your screen in Zoom. When you get onto your picture, you should see 3 dots. If you click on those, you will get the option to rename. The other way that you can rename yourself is through the participants window, which is a very helpful window for multiple purposes within Zoom. It should look something like this. Now, in the participants window, we're able to see who has raised their hand. We're also able to see them in the order in which they've raised their hand. In that way, it's something like the line that forms in a physical Presbytery meeting in front of the microphone. You can also rename yourself from the participants window by scrolling over your name, and then you will see an option that says more, and you can choose rename. You can raise your hand from the participants window by clicking the 3 little dots at the bottom of the participants window. You hear all this talk about raising your hand. What is that? Well, there are a lot of different ways that I've seen people raising their hand in Zoom. One is to raise their physical hand. The other is to click the reactions button at the bottom of the screen and click on the hand icon. That's actually clapping your hand, not raising your hand. We want to use the blue raised hands because that will allow our moderator to see who is seeking the floor in the order in which they're seeking the floor. The easiest way to raise your hand in Zoom is to use the shortcut key. If you have a Windows, press the Alt key and the Y key at the same time, and your hand will be up. If you have an Apple device, press the Option key and the Y key. If you are using a phone and dialing into the meeting, you can actually still raise your hand. Just press star and 9 on your phone. The moderator will then recognize you in the order in which you've raised your hand. A word about the chat function. You will see you will raise your hand in the meeting. And if you can't raise your hand or you're having some kind of technical difficulty, there is a way to get in touch with the host of the meeting. We're going to be disabling the chat function for the room and for side conversations 10 minutes prior to the meeting, which is in line with what they're doing for our virtual General Assembly and other presbyteries. However, we will keep the chat function open in which you can talk to the host, that is myself, in order to submit a motion in writing. That's actually something that's in Robert's Rules of Order for electronic meetings. And also, so that you can reach out to Reverend Joanna Dunn, who's a co-host helping us with the technical aspects of this meeting as well. So reach out to me if you're submitting a motion in writing. Reach out to Joanna if you need technical assistance. During the meeting, we'll be voting on various items. There are a couple of different ways to vote. The one we'll be using the most will be the polling option within Zoom. You may or may not have used the polling option before. It's actually pretty simple. The way that you use the polling option is that there will be a screen that comes onto your screen, something like this. This window will come up, and then you'll have a choice. Instead of how are you enjoying Zoom, it might say motion to adjourn. And then you would click yes or click no. If you choose not to vote or you do not have voting privileges, you can click the small X in the upper right-hand corner. If you're on an Apple device, it might just be a red dot. So that's how we're going to do the majority of our votes during this meeting. If you're a dial-in user, you can still vote. We've given 3 different options to vote, and someone will be in touch with you to talk you through those. You can vote by emailing, by texting, or by raising your hand at the appropriate time. Another way we are going to be doing votes is a vote by common consent as provided in Robert's Rules. If the moderator calls for a vote by common consent, the moderator will just ask if there's any objection to the motion by common consent, and at that point, you will raise your virtual hand, again by using Alt+Y, Option+Y, or *9, and then we'll count and see if there are any raised hands in order to enter that motion by common consent. So those are some of the functions that you'll need to use during this meeting. A word about muting yourself. As you can tell, even from this video, it's very common that there's background noise during a Zoom meeting. So we're just going to ask that everyone mute themselves at the beginning of the meeting. You should see the mute option at the bottom of your screen, the left-hand corner of your screen. Also, if you scroll over that picture of yourself at the top of your screen, you'll see that microphone icon that you can use to mute or unmute yourself. If you're dialing in, you can just use *+6 on your phone. The other thing that you can do is you can actually stop your video if you need to leave the room for a moment during the meeting. We are also going to build in a couple of Zoom breaks for 5 minutes during this meeting, because many of us have noticed that these Zoom meetings can cause Zoom fatigue. It can be very tiring. So we are building in some breaks. So that's about enough about the technical aspects of this meeting. What are we actually going to be talking about at this meeting? As with all our presbytery meetings, it's an opportunity for worshipful work. We will be praising God and lifting up our prayers to God during this time in which solidarity and action is called for in our presbytery. We will be listening for the Spirit's call to our work for justice and mercy and peace, to proclaim the good news for such a time as this. In practical terms, one thing that will mean will be commissioning our commissioners to the General Assembly, which will take place later this month, also virtually, also via Zoom. We will be also voting on Randy Balch grants, which are going out to some of our congregations who are doing important work for social justice. Additionally, we will be examining a candidate for ordination, and we will be meeting our new Synod Executive, Chip Harvick. Those are just a few of the things we'll be doing at this meeting. We do hope and trust that it is a time when God's presence will be felt, because we know that God is good all the time. We also know it will be a time in which we'll experience God's grace. This is a new experience for all of us, and we're all human. But thank God that we are not in this alone. God is with us every step of the way. So thank you for listening to this video, and I look forward to seeing you at the meeting.